Let me work backwards. You have a new band, a new recording, a new CD?
Yes, it's recorded with the Munich Symphony Orchestra, with my own band, which is has the great guitar player Mark Benia and great conductor from Norway, Emerson. And it's called the Three Fates Project. Now, those of you who know ELP, actually the Three Fates is not on this album. That's going to be on the next one. So, well, we have to wait and see how this album does first, you know. It was quite an expensive project, if you can imagine, like a 70-piece orchestra, and it was quite incredible actually. And the arrangements here are all like new, and there's what we've got, the Enigma Suite, Tarkus, which is it's pretty bold. A Balanced Bolero, which you probably remember from one of the ELP albums, and of course Fanfare for the Common Man. But on this particular occasion, we do the original Eric Copeland version, and then we get into an arrangement with the orchestra, which is based upon what I did with my other two companions around about 1977. That's Fanfare for the Common Man Part 2. The funny thing is that we had about 6 days to record this with the orchestra in Munich, and I was a bit nervous after the first day because I felt that the orchestra would just it was very testing, the arrangement, and I was asked to do a radio interview, and during which I happened to mention to the interviewer that I said, well, I very much doubt if the orchestra will be here after day 4. If they last that long, it'll be a miracle. And apparently they released the interview, that came out on the radio, and I think the members of the orchestra must have heard it, because during a coffee break, during day 5, I suppose, they must have heard it on the radio, and it was in a little park where we all went for coffee and that, you know. And I passed one of the members of the orchestra, and he looked at me, he'd obviously heard the radio, and he said, well, we're still here. I said, thank you, you know. So, no, it's quite a project, and quite wonderful. But we didn't have a name for the album, actually. So we just went ahead and did the recording, and so, you know, it involves me, it involves some new compositions, and some compositions, by quite a vast majority of it is what I've written, and some by Mark Benia. And Emerson, the conductor, was very prolific in helping with arrangements. So it was actually Mark Benia that chose the title, The Three Fates Project. And as I had to get on a plane and fly to England, I said, well, you do realise, don't you, that there's quite a distinct possibility that we could be called the Three Farts Project. Yeah. Good morning.
When was this recorded?
Last year, actually. Yes, we did the orchestral parts last year, and then Mark Benia took all the tapes and stuff. Well, you don't use tapes these days, but well, he gets involved in all the producing it and stuff. And obviously, well, I wanted to keep the budget down, so we kept the Moog in California. So we put the Moog on in California, and Mark Bonilla put his guitar on in California as well. Because mainly when you want to get a really good recording and to avoid overspill into the orchestra, because they're all acoustical instruments, electronic devices like such as the Moog and electric guitar have, rather than disturbing the orchestra, we had to put those on afterwards, bits of it. But I mean, a lot of it was played live. We actually, on the first day, played it all live with the orchestra, just so they could get an overall feel for it. But to get a really good recording, then we just stayed back, and I was mainly in the control room going over the arrangements. So that was it.
And you have the CD with you here?
This is it, yes, and...
you have it at your table?
I have them at my table, yeah. It's great, but actually the astounding thing is that the album cover is was done by William Neal, who did the Tarkus album, and also pictures at an exhibition. And quite honestly, I thought the guy was dead. And it turned out that he was living quite remotely in a part of the north of Scotland or somewhere. And I got to see that he was actually still painting, and he showed me some of his new artwork, and I was so relieved that he was still alive. So I stuck his painting on the album cover.
Okay, so many questions I want to ask, and so little time to work with, because that's what it is. But maybe we could briefly, how did ELP get formed? How did Emerson get started? Is there a Cliff Notes version of that?
Yes. Well, in the 60s I had a band called The Nice. Wow. Well, yes. Gosh, The Nice. What a name. I mean, I didn't really like the name. It was just, well, I formed it to back a very great soul singer, a lady called Pat Arnold, who under the name of P.P. Arnold. And she had a single out on a new independent record label, which is being run by Andrew Loog Oldham, who was the manager of the Rolling Stones. And she had a single out, I think Cat Stevens had written it, the first cut is The Deepest. And so she wanted a band to back her. So I formed a band to back her, and as we were going to the first gig, she said, "Now, what are you guys going to call yourself?" And I said, "I don't know yet, we don't have a name." So she'd been listening to a comedian called Lord Buckley, and who had this sort of very avant-garde sort of, I couldn't quite understand it because it was all in the vernacular, And he was referring to I suppose, him above as the Naz. So she said, why don't you call yourself the Naz? So I think I was slightly aware, didn't Todd Rundgren have a band called the Naz? Yeah, good on Todd, yeah. And so we decided to change it and put it, she said, why don't you guys call yourself the Nice? So I said, well, God. Everybody's going to call us the nice what, and indeed that did happen. We were actually on the marquee. It was like P.P. Arnold and her nice. probably was very nice, but I never experienced it, you know. So I sort of continued with the band, and we actually started off as a quartet, and then ended up as a trio, and then Pat Arnold had to return from England to America because the visa had expired, and so we continued as a band and went from one thing to another. Got a residency at the Marquee Club, which was very prestigious back then. You know, if you got into the Marquee Club, then you pretty much were made around England. And it was during this time that I suppose Jimi Hendrix had popped into the club, and you know, we got to know him and actually backed him on not only at the club but on a package tour, which by today's standards is quite astounding. On this package tour was not only the Jimi Hendrix Experience, but Pink Floyd, Amen Corner, Heir Apparent, and my lot, and it was great watching Jimmy play. We got to jam a few times, and Jimmy was into home movies. You know, he had a little movie camera, and there weren't video cameras like you guys have got today. You know, you had to sort of like wait until you took your film after it was all finished. There was about 4 minutes, I suppose, of film that you were available to do, and then you took it into a photographer and came back a week later, and then you play it on a projector, which obviously Jimmy did, but he'd been filming me in concert, and well, I was a bit mad in those days, and sticking knives in organ, actually jumping over the organ. Yeah, I did that, and there was Jimmy filming it, and when he had his film developed, he fast forwarded it and fast rewound it. So it looked like me going bing bong, bing, you know, a table tennis game or something, you know, and yes, that was about it really, I suppose. I never ended up playing on a recording with him, but he was a tremendous inspiration. But I don't think it would have really have worked out, him and I playing together, as much as I think the media got into the story. Sorry, I'm talking too much.
No, it's good. We're going with the group. So, of the most, I'm just jumping around here, of the most well-known ELP albums, Emerson.
Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't answer the rest of your question. The thing is that, how did ELP form? Well, around about 1969, I suppose that the whole essence of music was changing, and it was going from a bit more musical, and the singer, Lee Jackson, who's still a very good friend of mine, it wasn't the best singer in the world, and there are other bands, and so I thought, well, let's get, I've got to form another band, and so I looked around. Actually, my first choice was Chris Squire, and I approached him, and he, because he was a bass player, but he said that no, I don't feel comfortable doing lead vocals. I'm much happier doing backing vocals. He said, why don't you choose? I forget who he mentioned. Terry Riley could have been. I don't know. But I said, no, I want to keep it as a trio. So then I looked further on and then approached a guy, Jack Bruce of Cream. Approached him, and he said, well, yeah, what music do you want to play? I said, well, I'm going to play my stuff. He said, I don't want that. You got to do it with a Scottish accent, you know? So I said, no. If I play with you, you've got to play my stuff, okay? So I thought, well, that's not fair. So I moved on, and then I got to hear this band called King Crimson, and and I heard on the radio a thing called cat food, and I said, God, who's that? And anyway, I got to meet him when we all played together in the West, on the West Coast. Bill Graham, the promoter, not the evangelist. Bill Graham had the Fillmore West, and we were on the same bill. It was a bill, same bill. Okay, but Bill Graham had some marvelous ideas where he would put together the most extraordinary units. You know, whereas you'd find yourself on stage with Cannibal Adderley and the Who in one go, and the King Crimson were on, happened to be on one of these concerts, and I took a moment to sort of like get with Greg, and it was kind of very clandestine, you know, sort of secretive. It was sort of like, well, you know, I think my band, the Nice, realised that something was up. You know, I think he's having an affair. You know, so both Greg and myself had to be very careful. You know, we didn't want to upset the members because we had other gigs to do. You know, so when we got back to London, we met up, and one of the first drummers that we looked for was Mitch Mitchell, but sadly no longer with us. I played with Mitch many times before. And I don't know, Greg didn't really like him. And then I got to hear of this young chap, a guy called Carl Palmer, who, so we auditioned him, and he immediately set up his drums, and I was quite fascinated, because he was very young. He hadn't reached 21. Was he about 19 or 20, I think? But it was very, very cute, you know, very cute, you know. I mean, it was really funny, because, you know, on his bass drum he had a picture of Noddy. I don't know if anybody knows of Noddy over here, but it's a kid's thing, right? Yeah, it's a kid's cartoon. So I thought, well, that's very cute, you know. But no, he could sure play, and wonderfully well, and so that was it. So we kind of looked for a name, and I think the other two wanted a group name, but none of them were that satisfactory. And so I said, well, let's just call it by our own names. So they said, well, what do you know? I said, well, our last names, you know. I said, Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And so they looked at me and said, well, why should your name come first? And I quickly thought about it. I said, well, it's in alphabetical order. So as to avoid any arguments. The arguments came later, but anyway. So yes, I think they accepted that one. Oh yes, alphabetical order. Yeah, that makes sense, yes. It doesn't quite sing very well, does it, Greg? You know, Palmer, Lake and Emerson. No, that's pretty cool. That was it.
So, of all the albums the LP recorded, do you have a personal favorite? I mean, all your fans and band listeners, you know, a lot of people like Tarkus, a lot of people like Pictures at an Exhibition. Do you have a favorite?
Well, I think it was always every album that we did, right from the very first one, which was, I found, well, Greg and I hadn't actually established a writing relationship. So basically the first album is quite a lot of instrumentals on that. And, you know, I was very thankful for when, you know, things did work out. You know, Greg is very thoughtful, considerate writer of songs, and he sort of likes to iron them out and really think about how it's going to always end up. And we were under pressure to get that first album out because, well, you know, there were record companies standing by waiting to see what happened. But in all of that time, it was wonderful that we had our own freedom to write exactly what we wanted to write. There were no, like today, you know, where you have to submit a demo of what you're doing, and then the record company considers it, and if they like it, and they always go in at the last minute and say, well, you change this, you go, no, that's not great, you know. What's the radio playable material? Yeah, well, we never regarded this, well, I certainly didn't regard ELP as being sort of to become a hit band, you know, a pop band. You know, it was like, back in those days, in the 70s, if you had a hit single, you were, you kind of considered that like you sold out. And so when Lucky Man sort of went up there in the charts, it was quite astounding. I mean, number one, I thought, my God, how on earth are we going to do this on stage? You know, I can't sing. You know, I mean, Greg had overdubbed all the vocals, so it was all the voices that you hear on that first record on Lucky Man were all done by Greg. So I was really, and I think Carl felt the same way. Like, wow, why have they chosen that as a single? You know. So as I said, I can't sing. Well, I mean, I can, but a bit more about that later if you've got time. I sing, quite honestly, I sing so bad, deaf people refuse to read my lips. I have athlete's voice. When I sing, people run away very quickly. So that's it. Yes, I can write the music, but you know, singing. Yes, I have sung. If you want to seek those things out, my vocal renditions. But I went to a karaoke thing. My lady over there took me down to karaoke. I went, oh no, I don't want to go to karaoke. So it's good fun. So she got up and sang, and it was pretty good, you know. Oh, yeah, I'll have a hang on. We have a glass of Chardonnay and think about this. And so I looked through the. Actually, the first thing I sang was sort of more in character. It was sort of Herman's Hermits, Henry VIII. So, oh, hey, Henry VIII, oh yeah. I thought, yeah, I could do that. You know, that's all right. And then I got braver and I looked down at, oh, look at that. Welcome back, my friends. Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Oh, I can do that. Yeah. So I put my name down and nobody in the club knew who the hell I was. Luckily, otherwise I wouldn't have done it, you know. So anyway, my name came up. Keith, you're next up. Okay. So up I go, and the ding 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 ding. Gosh, this is not easy, you know. So I'm welcome back, my friends. To the, you're watching the lyrics go along, you know. You could have said. So I finished to no applause. And as I walked off the stage, I passed a table with a guy sitting there looking at me very miserable. He said, "You just ruined a great song." And the guy on the table next to him nudged him with the elbow and said, "He fucking wrote it."
Who else thinks we would like to spend hours with this guy? Just about cover like 2 or 3 questions?
Yeah.
We're going to take 2 or 3 questions from the audience, and please keep it brief, and Keith will answer, and then he'll go back to his room. Please.
Hi, Keith. What's the funniest Spinal Tap moment that all 3 of you guys experienced on stage back in the 70s?
The Spinal Tap moment for me, not me playing the Spinal Tap, because you know I did.
Right. All 3 of you guys in the 70s playing, everything's going wrong. What jumps into your mind?
Probably falling off stage, I think. Yeah, riding your organ across the stage, and it's quite amazing that nobody was actually hurt, but the road crew managed to catch the organ as it went off the edge and threw it back up there, and they threw me back after. Well, actually, they threw me back after it, but it had happened quite a few times before, because in the night I jumped over the organ, and it was completely dark, and I suddenly went on forever, and I ended up in the pit, you know, there's a stage and the orchestral pit. It's a wonder I didn't hurt myself, but which of course left the bass player and the drummer on stage. We were doing rondo actually, so and so the bass player's going. And the last thing that the bass player saw was an arse and a pair of boots going over the organ and not coming back. So basically, you had the bass player sort of like, where'd he go? You know, searching around for me. And meanwhile, of course, I was trying to get back on stage. But I didn't have a backstage pass. So the guy on the security there, so looked at me and said, "Sorry, mate, you can't come back in. You don't have a pass, mate." I said, "Listen, if you don't allow me in there, back on stage, you're going to have the longest bloody bass solo you've ever heard in your life. Is that what you want?" So, I don't know, finally the roadie came to my rescue and chucked me back on. Yeah, alright. Yeah, hi.
I was wondering if any plans for any New York City shows coming up anytime soon.
Any what?
Any shows in the New York City area?
Well, actually, we're hoping that to attract a number of orchestras on the release of this album, which I don't think it's out yet, although I think it might be available. But we're hoping to attract orchestras, and so that we could do that. Obviously, it's going to be very expensive to tour with an orchestra. So the object would be to probably choose major cities, like New York being one, and then to pay for the cost of it to tour in between cities as a quartet. That's just one idea. The other idea is to take the key players from the orchestra, like the first violinist, first trumpet, first woodwind, you know. And but it does need a lot of rehearsals. So, but you know, at least now, I mean, you know, sort of proved it's possible to get together, you know. So there we go. That's one way of doing it. I mean, of course, another one is looking to quartet. You know, I don't think I've got a big enough repertoire to just do a solo concert. But yes, I have. Thank you for your vote of confidence.
Last final question. Yes.
It's not a question.
Oh.
I want to wish Obama Barracks a happy early birthday.
Oh, thank
November
you.
2nd. Happy birthday to you.
You can sing happy birthday.
I
to me.
can't sing.
Oh, you can't.
Everybody.
Oh. Well, I can't sing. Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday, dear me. Happy birthday.